Brexit is killing the shellfish industry. That's the message from angry business owners in London today as lorries descended on Westminster, protesting against the export problems they're now facing. Exports of fresh fish and seafood have been severely disrupted by new border controls since the UK's departure from the European Union earlier this month. These fisheries are saying the UK government is at fault. And for more on that story, I'm joined by our Foreign Affairs editor, Philip Turle. Hi, Philip. Now, tell us, just what are the fishermen so angry about specifically?
Well, let's begin, shall we, with a look at how many fishermen actually voted for Brexit back in 2016. Olivia, how many British fishermen? 92.1% of the fishermen at that time said it was a good idea to leave the EU, with only 2.6% saying they wanted to remain in the European Union. Well, 4.5 years on, it hasn't really worked out the way that it was supposed to as far as they're concerned. And the promises that the government made that they would recuperate British fishing waters, all their fish would have easy access, as it was always the case to EU markets, that hasn't really happened. So they say, look, we voted in favour of this, and what have we got? OK, we don't have quotas, that's been agreed on. We don't have any border controls. But what we do have is we have a lot more red tape, and that red tape means filling out forms which we didn't expect to have to do, and that's slowing it all down. Just to give you an example, it takes 5 hours per lorry to obtain a health certificate, and then after that they have to obtain other customs paperwork. And I'll give you an idea of some of those customs paperwork regulations. There's a new EU VAT form, there's a new computerised transit system called the NCTS, there are C88 forms to be filled in, and T1 forms, tax forms also that have to be filled in, which means it's going to take a long time. The result is that fish are starting to go off, and the shellfish in those containers which have to be examined quite often in the past their sell-by date by the time they get back on the lorry to go into the EU, and they end up in a landfill. And many fishermen are saying, look, it's not even worth us going out to find the fish because we know that this paperwork is going to be so bad we're not going to get the fish to the EU market, so we're not even going to bother to go out, which means we're losing money hand over fist, and if nothing is done we're going to go bankrupt. And some fishermen are saying, well, it'll be even easier for us just to go straight to Denmark with our catch, unload it there, we're in the EU already, and then our fish will be sent off into the European Union with no paperwork. So they're very angry with the British government.
Indeed. No, it sounds like movement across that border is anything but fluid, excuse the pun. Now, what about the response from London, Boris Johnson's government?
Well, Boris Johnson has said, yes, there is a problem. He says it's a temporary frustration, that fishermen will be compensated for that, but there's no real solution in sight. What they need to do to resolve the situation is to rejoin the customs union, but of course that's not going to happen. So the Environment Secretary George Eustice has said there are teething problems, that's what he calls it, and said that once the industry was used to the paperwork, things would begin moving fast once again, but that hasn't really given any kind of solace to the fishermen, who are very angry about all of this. And the Fisheries Minister, Victoria Prince, well, she was asked about it, and she said, well, I was actually too busy to read the post-Brexit trade deal because I was organising a nativity play on Christmas Eve when the trade deal was released, and I haven't had time to look at it. And if that wasn't enough, the Conservative leader of the House, Jacob Rees-Mogg, has said the government is working on the problem, but at least the fish are happy.
The fishing issue was covered a moment ago by my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and perhaps the honourable gentleman should have tuned into that debate rather than bringing it up at business questions. But what is happening is that the government is tackling this issue, is dealing with it as quickly as possible, and the key is we've got our fish back. They're now British fish, and they're better and happier fish for it.
So you may expect the fishermen to create more haddock before this situation is resolved. Olivia.
Well, indeed, at least the fish are happy there. Thank you very much for that analysis, Philip Turle from our Foreign Affairs desk. Now, that's all for this bulletin. Do stay with us here